1. Overcoming challenges. What do they leave behind? The shortest way out of hardship is to go through it. Anonymous. A young man was struggling and feeling disheartened by life's challenges. In search of guidance, he approached a wise old man. The old man listened to his story in silence. Without saying a word, he placed a pot on the stove, poured in some water, and added a carrot, a piece of salt, and an egg. After the water came to a boil, he lifted the lid and gazed at the young man thoughtfully. After a moment, he began to speak. Everyone faces difficulties and challenges in life, but what's important is what happens afterward. Look at these examples. The salt, though solid, dissolves in water. The carrot, once firm, becomes soft when heated. Yet, the egg, despite its fragile shell, becomes hard when boiled. The lesson is that while some people might let hardships dissolve their resolve or soften their spirit, others can emerge stronger and more resilient. How you respond to life's trials can shape who you become. 2. Stay calm amid life's storms. A wise person remains humble in prosperity and composed in adversity. As the ancients taught, when faced with misfortune, do not despair, for everyone has their unique purpose. Consider the story of Shilu, who traveled to persuade the kings of the feudal states. One day, while crossing a river, his boat capsized. A boatman rescued him and laughed, saying, "You nearly drowned, and yet you think you can advise kings." Zilu replied, "A jade stone is not suitable for weaving like a tile is. A pearl is not as effective as a clay ball for shooting birds, and a fine horse running 1,000 miles a day cannot catch a mouse better than a cat. A precious sword is not as good for sewing as a needle. You may excel at swimming and sailing, but if you were to entertain a feudal king, you would be out of your element. Each person has their strengths. One may fall into trouble due to their weaknesses, but will eventually shine through their strengths. Why be despondent and fixated on failures and shortcomings, like focusing on a scratch on a gemstone while forgetting it is still a precious gem? A snail envied a frog for its 4 legs, allowing it to hop freely, while the snail carried a heavy shell. Suddenly, an eagle swooped down. The snail retracted into its shell while the frog was eaten. The snail then realized that its shell was its protection. The poet Li Bai, with only a jug of wine and the moon, never felt impoverished. As he said, "Heaven gave me my talents for a reason. Fortune lost will return again." Life has its ups and downs, just as the sun rises and sets, the moon waxes and wanes, and rivers meander. Recognizing this natural order helps one maintain a calm heart amid life's storms. A person who understands the nature of gains and losses and possesses a pure, selfless, and courageous heart holds the most valuable treasure in life. 3. A step forward in life. You must walk your own path. From suffering, happiness will sprout. Facing the battering rain and harsh winds through dense thickets, the distant horizon is our only goal. Despite stormy nights and scorching days, we must walk our path ourselves. He was my student. When he shared this story with me, he was a 15-year-old boy with a bright, handsome face but severe difficulty walking, always needing a crutch under his arm. Nevertheless, he was very optimistic and loved life. He often said that his resilience came from his mother's words, "Every step you take is one you make on your own." As he said this, his eyes shone with faith and an unyielding determination that was rare among his peers. At 6, he was struck by a strange illness that caused muscle contractions. Walking felt like his legs had no strength, often causing him to fall. His health deteriorated, adding to his difficulties. His parents, deeply worried, took him to numerous hospitals and specialists, but to no avail. Doctors everywhere shook their heads, saying, The boy has myasthenia gravis. It's challenging to cure. For now, medication, nutrition, and physical therapy are the only options. His life became markedly different from others. In elementary school, he faced his first challenges. While other kids needed just over 10 minutes to get to school on time, it took him much longer, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour. His classmates, not understanding, often teased him, making him even more distressed. When he was 13, one winter afternoon, the weather suddenly changed. It grew very cold, with snowflakes swirling in the air and strong winds blowing snow onto the roofs and roads. By the time school was out, snow had piled up. Many parents rushed to pick up their children. He waited for his parents at the school gate, but even after all his classmates had left, there was no sign of them. He worried, thinking perhaps something had happened to them. Then his worry turned to heartbreak. Have my parents abandoned me? Tears streamed down his young face. Finally, he took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and stepped into the snowy weather, trudging forward. The usual tough walk to school was now even more grueling. He stumbled repeatedly, his feet sinking into the snow, his shoes feeling frozen solid. The streets were empty, with everyone likely home by the fire, gathered around dinner tables. The lonely lights from a few windows only deepened his sorrow. The path home seemed endless, a sea of white snow before him. He collapsed, crying, his tears freezing in the icy wind. At that moment, a small rabbit darted in front of him. It was tiny but moved bravely, hopping through the snow without hesitation. The rabbit, like him, was finding its way home. He wiped his tears and stood up with all his strength. The rabbit hopped and paused, as if waiting for him. He closed his eyes and took step after step, seeing only white ahead. In his deepest pain, he silently blamed his parents for not loving him anymore. He wanted to give up, but something kept him moving forward. Finally, he saw the familiar gate of his home. Exhausted, he crawled the last stretch. The house lights were still on. His parents were home. He staggered to the door, ready to ring the bell, but the door was already open. His mother stood on the porch, her eyes filled with tears, hands clasped to her chest. "You made it!" she cried, rushing to embrace him. He burst into tears. From behind, a voice said, "Well done, my boy. Be strong like a man." He turned to see his father standing in the snow, covered in it and shivering. His mother wiped her tears, tenderly touched his head, and said, "Look back, son. Every footprint in the snow is yours. We are so proud of you. Be strong on life's journey, my dear." His father joined the embrace, saying, "I followed you the entire way, watching you fall and rise, shed tears and keep going. Your pain is tenfold mine, and I wanted to hold you, but you needed to walk this path to become a strong man." That was the happiest day of the boy's life. His solitary walk in the snowy night spoke volumes. In life, you might face a cold, snowy night. The road may seem endless and you may feel exhausted and disheartened. What should you do? There is only one answer. Keep going. Every step you take is your own. Life is yours to experience and grow from. Don't expect a hero to save you in times of trouble. Don't expect challenges to avoid you. Hardships reveal true strength, like how the crucible of trials forges a strong, resilient hero. Embrace these opportunities to elevate yourself on life's ladder. As the Tang Dynasty poet Wang wrote in Climbing Stork Tower, "The sun sets behind the mountains. The yellow river flows into the sea. To see 1,000 miles farther, climb another story."
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
4. Han Xin and the Story of the Wake-Up Call. Han Xin, a renowned general of the Han Dynasty, wandered the streets aimlessly before he rose to fame. At one point, he even contemplated ending his monotonous and unfulfilled life. An old woman who washed clothes by the river took pity on him and brought him a bowl of rice every day for several weeks. After eating his fill, Han Xin confidently told the old woman that he would repay her kindness someday. Hearing this, the old woman suddenly became angry and said, "I fed you out of pity. A man who cannot even support himself talks about repaying others? Ridiculous." Her words implied that a real man should be self-reliant and not fantasize about repaying others when he couldn't even take care of himself. The old woman's harsh and unfeeling words were a severe humiliation for Han Xin. Yet, this scolding served as a wake-up call that jolted him out of his confusion and despair, sparking in him a strong desire to change his life. Ming Dynasty philosopher Lu Kun once said, "There is no shame in being poor. The shame is in being poor and without ambition. A person who lacks determination is nothing more than a boastful, powerless figure. If one cannot take care of oneself, how can one speak of helping others?" It was thanks to the old woman's stern attitude that Han Xin found the spirit to endure hardships and strive for success. Eventually, he became a distinguished general of the Han Dynasty and was able to repay the old woman's kindness. If the old woman had gently advised him with words like, "You need to work hard, you need to try," Han Xin might not have found his life's purpose so quickly. Being mocked by others is extremely humiliating, but it is unavoidable. The best way to handle it is to digest the criticism effectively, transforming it into motivation that helps you break through obstacles and embark on a new journey. 5. The calm and confident demeanor of DONGPO. Su Shi, also known by his pen name DONGPO, was a renowned writer and poet during the Northern Song dynasty. He enjoyed disguising himself and wandering around famous mountains and ancient temples, often engaging in conversations with monks. In the fourth year of the Jining era, 1071, Su Shi held the position of vice commissioner in Hangzhou, serving there for 3 years. One day, while exploring a temple in Hangzhou, he grew tired and thirsty and decided to rest in the temple. The head monk, noticing Su Shi's simple attire, mistook him for an ordinary pilgrim and showed him little respect. He casually said, "Take a seat," and then told a young monk, "Tea." The young monk brought over a cup of old, cold tea. After a few casual exchanges, the head monk realized that this visitor spoke eloquently and seemed extraordinary, and thus invited him into his private quarters for a deeper conversation. In the private room, the head monk politely said, "Please sit," and asked the young monk to serve tea again. After a while, the head monk learned that his guest was indeed the famous poet DONGPO. Shocked and embarrassed, the head monk hurriedly led him to the guest room, repeatedly saying, "Please have a seat," and asked the young monk to serve the finest tea. After some more conversation, DONGPO prepared to leave. The head monk, eager to have a memento of the visit, asked DONGPO to write a few words for him. DONGPO thought for a moment, smiled, and wrote a couplet. The first line read, "Sit, please sit, sit respectfully," and the second line read, "Tea, please tea, tea with respect." The head monk, realizing his initial mistake, blushed with shame and fell silent. Intelligent people understand that a person's worth is not determined by the words of others. Su Shi, with his rich experiences and self-cultivation, remained calm and unbothered when underestimated, handling the situation gracefully without concern for others' attitudes. The head monk, despite his practice, had yet to let go of his biases and ultimately felt ashamed after recognizing Su Shi's talent. In life, we may encounter situations similar to Su Shi's. Can we maintain such calm and composure? Often, it's not that others look down on us or make things difficult, but rather we fail to meet their expectations. Thus, Others' attitudes reflect our own self-image. By improving our image and self-worth through self-cultivation, we can gradually earn others' respect. However, this requires confidence. The Russian writer Leo Tolstoy once said, "Believe in yourself, and others will believe in you." If you don't respect yourself, how can you expect others to? Imagine yourself as a diamond accidentally lost on a beach, mistaken for a worthless grain of sand. If you remain patient and endure the ebb and flow of the tides, eventually your brilliance will catch everyone's eye. So, if you truly are a diamond, do not complain or resent your circumstances. Persist in your dream of shining brightly, and you will surely succeed one day. 6. YANGMING and the Journey to Enlightenment. 500 years ago, YANGMING faced a life-and-death ordeal in Longchang, Guizhou Province, China. It was there that he attained enlightenment and understood the principle of the mind is the principle. The mind itself is the principle. When he arrived at Dongting Lake, one of his students, Ji Yuanhan, asked him, "What is the mind is the principle?" YANGMING only smiled without saying a word. Instead of answering directly, he called for his young assistant, who took care of his books and writing materials, and asked him to bring the Records of the Warring States book. He then opened to the first page and took out a detailed map of the Warring States period. Without saying anything, he quietly tore the map into small pieces. He then handed the pieces to his student, Ji Yuanhan, and asked him to put the map back together. Ji Yuanhan scratched his head and used all his knowledge, but he could only piece together the 6 states of Shandong. There were still many other states on the map that he couldn't assemble. Finally, Ji Yuanhan stood helplessly and looked at his teacher. YANGMING smiled and handed the pieces to his assistant. Ji Yuanhan, unwilling to give up, thought to himself, "If even I couldn't do it, how could this young assistant possibly do it?" But to his surprise, the young assistant didn't even look at the map of the warring states. Instead, he turned all the pieces over. On the back was a portrait of Liu Xiang, the author of the Records of the Warring States. The young assistant said to Ji Yuanhan, "If you just assemble this portrait, the map will naturally come together." At this moment, Ji Yuanhan finally understood what the mind is the principle meant. Everything is within the mind. The mind is the principle, and the principle comes from the mind. When a person's heart is righteous, their world is also righteous. When a person's heart is calm and free, their surroundings are harmonious and peaceful. If your mind is clear, the world will no longer be dark. If your heart is peaceful, the world will be as warm as spring. There is no need to seek answers from the outside world, because everything lies deep within your own mind. It is not the world that shapes a person, but a person that shapes the world. As the ancient saying goes, the appearance arises from the mind. The environment changes with the heart. This is the essence of the principle. 7. Unshakable mind and calmness amidst life's turbulence. An unshakable mind is calm and tranquil, even amidst rising waves and roaring seas. Even if the sky falls and the earth trembles, it maintains a steadfast composure. It does not fear danger or waver due to external difficulties. Even if Mount Tai were to collapse right before their eyes, they would remain unfazed. Even if a deer were to charge at them, they wouldn't blink an eye. During a tumultuous period, General Wang YANGMING was sent to suppress a rebellion in Nam Kong. The situation there was extremely chaotic, with the government forces suffering continuous defeats, making it almost impossible to control. Facing such dire circumstances, failure would not only mean his death, but also the demise of his entire family. However, Wang YANGMING remained unshaken, unaffected by the turmoil in Nam Kong. Despite the chaos, he stayed calm and composed, as if taking a leisurely ride to admire the scenery. On his first day, he exposed a spy in his ranks and used them to implement a counterintelligence strategy, leading to a decisive victory in Jiangxi. When Prince Ning rebelled, the situation became unpredictable. With his forces too weak, YANGMING devised strategies to buy time until his troops grew stronger and gained the upper hand. He made wise decisions, unaffected by the opinions of others. By restricting his generals from engaging in battle, he wore down the enemy's morale. In the Battle of Lake Poyang, he used fire tactics to defeat Prince Ning, and even when Prince Ning was captured, YANGMING remained calm, continuing to teach his students. An unshakable mind can adapt flexibly to circumstances. When facing chaotic and complex situations, most people are easily swept away by the immediate events, losing their direction. Only those with a resolute inner self can remain unshaken by external events, becoming a guiding light in the darkness, illuminating the path forward. 8. YANGMING, From Hardship to Enlightenment. During the Mid-Ming Dynasty, Emperor Zhu Haozhou was reckless, and the eunuch Liu Jin held excessive power. YANGMING boldly criticized the emperor for trusting eunuchs and punishing loyal ministers. As a result, Liu Jin sought to imprison Wang. After a month in prison, Wang was flogged with 40 strokes and exiled to Longchang, Guizhou. Liu Jin, still unsatisfied, sent assassins to kill Wang. On his journey into exile, Wang traveled by water, narrowly escaping death numerous times. His pulmonary condition worsened, and his health declined significantly. Despite these challenges, Wang persevered and eventually reached the remote, desolate Longchang. The local people were of the Miao ethnic group, living primitive lives and displaying violent tendencies akin to uncivilized barbarians. The air was filled with pestilent miasma, threatening human life. Wang's followers fell ill one by one. Before leaving, they urged Wang to take care of himself. At that moment, Wang found himself in utter despair, unable to care for his parents, unable to fulfill his ambitions, witnessing the chaos of the imperial court, and being stranded in this remote, inhospitable place. Wang seemed to have lost everything, yet he remained undeterred and never gave up. He meticulously read the books he had brought, pondering unresolved questions. One stormy night, Wang lay on a cold stone, rain pouring down on his face, soaking him completely until midnight. Finally, he reached a breakthrough in his long-standing questions. This realization was the unity of mind and principle, the concept that the mind itself is the principle. Thus, YANGMING's school of mind philosophy was born. From then on, YANGMING was revered as a sage. YANGMING believed that one must reflect deeply on all matters to stand firm. In both tranquility and action, one can find inner peace. Hardships and difficulties are the best opportunities to temper one's character. Life is a series of trials and transformations. Those who rely on others will always be weak. True courage lies in facing life and oneself, confronting personal flaws and regrets without compromise, and moving forward bravely. Success and happiness belong only to the courageous and diligent. There's a saying that the phoenix undergoes nirvana, reborn from the ashes. The caterpillar endures pain to break free from its cocoon and become a butterfly, achieving its true self. Persevere through hardships to the end, and you will be astonished by the extraordinary beauty of your own transformation. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 9. The story of the wise man and the phoenix. In life, many people hear wise teachings and think they are excellent and correct, yet they find it difficult to follow through. There was once a wise man who was walking through a sacred forest when he came across a phoenix trapped in a snare. He thought, "This bird is so beautiful, maybe I should capture it and take it home. My guests would surely be impressed." Suddenly, he heard a voice saying, "You shouldn't think like that." Surprised, the wise man looked around but saw no one. It was just him and the trapped phoenix. He asked, "Was that you speaking?" The phoenix replied, "Yes, it was me. I am no ordinary bird. I can speak human language and I am a sage. If you release me, I will give you 3 pieces of valuable advice." The wise man said, "All right, I'll set you free, but first tell me your 3 pieces of advice." The phoenix spoke. "First, never believe false words, no matter who says them, even if they are famous or hold high status. Second, never try to do things beyond your capabilities, for you will only face failure. Always know your limits before undertaking any task. The person who knows their limits is wise. The one who doesn't is foolish. Third, if you do something good, don't regret it. If you do something bad, repent." The wise man found these words profound and meaningful, recognizing that such advice was rare. He then released the phoenix from the snare. As soon as the trap was removed, the phoenix laughed and said, "You foolish man, you are so naive." The wise man asked, "Why do you call me foolish?" The phoenix replied, "Inside me, there is a magical elixir. If you had caught me and taken it, you would have gained great power and wisdom." The wise man regretted letting the phoenix go. He climbed a tree, trying to catch the phoenix again, but as he climbed higher, the phoenix moved to a higher branch. When he reached the top, the phoenix soared into the sky. Disappointed, the wise man started to climb down, but accidentally fell, breaking his leg and injuring his head. The phoenix circled above and then perched on a nearby branch, saying, "You truly are foolish. There is no magical elixir inside me. You believed a lie. You risked your life climbing a tall tree to catch me, but how could you ever hope to succeed? You regretted doing a good deed by releasing me. Why regret something kind and virtuous? Go home and reflect on my advice." With that, the phoenix flew away. The wise man had an epiphany. There is a saying, "To learn without practice is like not learning at all." Many people hear wise teachings and find them excellent and correct, yet they find it difficult to follow through. Speaking is easy, but doing is hard. Just like the wise man who praised the phoenix's advice but fell shortly after. 10. The virtue of patience and overcoming hardships in life. Buddhism teaches that living as a human means enduring suffering. Beyond the inherent pains of birth, aging, sickness, and death, there are additional hardships like separation, unfulfilled desires, and injustices that seem impossible to address. Whether one sinks into the sea of suffering and self-destruction or rises above it like a lotus blooming in the mud depends on how one understands and faces these trials. In the same difficult situation, 2 people may end up with very different fates, distinguished by their responses. Take the story of Vu Nuong from Nam Shuang. She was a woman of great virtue and beauty, married to Truong Sin, a man prone to jealousy. When Vu Nuong was close to giving birth, her husband was called to war. She gave birth and took care of her mother-in-law with utmost devotion. Missing her son, the mother-in-law became gravely ill and eventually passed away. Vu Nuong conducted the funeral with the same care she would for her own parents. To soothe her loneliness, she often pointed to her shadow on the wall and told her son it was his father. When Truong Sin returned from the battlefield, he visited his mother's grave, bringing their son with him. The child, crying, said that Truong was not his father, explaining that his father only came at night, sat when his mother sat and left when she did, but never held him. Blinded by jealousy, Truong Sin accused Vu Nuong of infidelity and drove her away despite the neighbor's attempts to intervene. Unable to clear her name, Vu Nuong drowned herself in the Hoangjiang River, declaring her innocence. Later, when their son pointed to the shadow on the wall and said his father had returned, Truong Sin realized his mistake, but it was too late. Vu Nuong was already gone. Another story is that of Thi Kin, a woman of exceptional virtue and filial piety from Cao Lai. She married Thien Si, a handsome and studious man. One night, while Thien Si was reading, he grew tired and fell asleep. Seeing a stray hair on his chin, Thi Kin picked up a sewing knife to trim it. Thien Si awoke suddenly and thought his wife intended to harm him. His parents, convinced by Thien Si's account, accused Thi Kin of attempted murder and returned her to her family. Heartbroken but resolute, Thi Kin disguised herself as a man and sought refuge in a monastery where she was given the name Tu King Tam. She devoted herself to a monastic life. Near the monastery lived Ti Mao, the daughter of a wealthy man known for her flirtatious nature. She became infatuated with Tu Kin Tam, who remained steadfastly uninterested. Later, Ti Mao became pregnant by her family servant, No, but claimed Tu Kin Tam was the father. Unable to defend herself, Tu Kin Tam accepted the accusation and endured severe beatings. The head monk, sympathetic yet bound by the rules, relegated Tu Kin Tam to live outside the main hall. When Thi Mao gave birth to a son, her father forced her to bring the child to Tu Kin Tam. Moved by compassion, Tu Kin Tam took the baby in and cared for him despite the mockery from villagers. After 3 years, the child grew strong, and Buddha, seeing Tu Kin Tam's endurance, granted her the title of Bodhisattva. Before her passing, Tu Kin Tam wrote a letter revealing her true identity. Only then did people understand her suffering and vindicate her honor. Enduring hardship can lead to true happiness. The injustices faced by Vu Nuong and Thi Kin reflect different paths. Vu Nuong could not bear the false accusations and ended her life, while Thi Kin, embodying patience and compassion, endured and ultimately attained enlightenment. This patience, represented in the Chinese character Ren, signifies enduring a sharp blade to the heart without wavering, illustrating the essence of true patience. Historical examples further demonstrate this virtue. Han Xin, who endured humiliation in his youth, later became a great general for Liu Bang. Patience is not weakness, but strength. As Tzu Shu Yuanquan said, "Forgive, forgive, forgive. Various calamities will vanish. Endure, endure, endure. Debts and enemies will cease to be. Enduring suffering brings ultimate happiness." By embodying patience and compassion, one can overcome life's hardships and achieve true inner peace. 11. Be careful with arrogance and conceit. Once upon a time, there was a king who, along with his court officials, went into the forest to hunt. That day, the royal hunting party had a successful outing, capturing many animals, and the officials were feeling quite pleased with themselves. Suddenly, a monkey appeared, joyfully leaping from tree to tree. The king, caught up in the excitement, drew his bow and shot at the monkey, but each time the monkey effortlessly dodged the arrows. The monkey continued to somersault on the branches, which only made the king more and more angry. The king then ordered his most skilled general to try his luck. But the monkey was too quick, and even the general couldn't hit it. The monkey, realizing its advantage, became even more arrogant, sitting on a branch as if mocking the court officials, and continued its playful antics, making the king and his men feel like fools. Enraged, The king ordered all his soldiers to shoot at the monkey simultaneously, sending a hail of arrows that the monkey could not escape. The king remarked, "This monkey died because it didn't know its own limits, becoming too arrogant and forgetting itself. Monkeys are smart and agile creatures. If it had known its limits, it would have lived happily, returning to its troop without suffering such a fate." In life, anything taken to excess becomes a bad thing. It's like a river that brings water to the fields on either side. If it flows calmly within its banks, it nurtures the crops. But if it becomes swollen with pride and overflows, it becomes a disaster. At that point, who would praise it? Whatever we do, we must not be carried away by momentary excitement and exceed our limits. Doing so not only harms ourselves, but also brings disaster to others. People who become arrogant often forget their original goals. They fail to see that life is a long journey, and success or failure is just a part of it. Every small achievement is just a step forward, but there's still a long and arduous road ahead. Those who become conceited see the small hills along the way as the highest peaks, thinking they've reached the top. Because of this, they can't see the taller mountains that lie ahead. 12. Secret to a happy life. Stop comparing yourself to others. Learning to love life is enough. Are we living according to others' expectations or being true to ourselves? There's a famous saying in the Thai Can Dam that goes, "The one who desires much is rich but feels poor, while the one who knows contentment is poor but feels rich." Those who are never satisfied, who never feel content, can't appreciate the beauty of life even when surrounded by happiness. During the Ming Dynasty, there was a man named Ho Ku, born into poverty. Despite working hard, he only earned enough to eat each day. At dusk, he would go outside to light incense and give thanks to heaven for granting him a peaceful and happy life. When his wife asked him why, he smiled and said, "Living in a time of peace, free from war, with enough food and clothes, and no one in the family is sick or in prison. Isn't that a happy and peaceful life?" Don't compare yourself to others or dwell on what others have. Be satisfied with what you have. A house to live in is enough, money to spend is enough, obedient children are enough, and healthy parents are enough. Life is simply the accumulation of small, happy moments. Living fully in the present is the truest way to live. Often what others have may not suit you even if it's better. What belongs to you will come to you eventually. What doesn't belong to you can't be forced. It seems we are never satisfied with what we have and always envy what others possess. Have you ever caught yourself comparing yourself to others? If only I were as beautiful as her, I'd find the perfect husband. If I were tall and pretty like her, my boss would favor me more. If my wife were as pretty as others, I'd feel proud wherever I go. If I had a lot of money, I'd travel everywhere like those people. If I could sing and play instruments like that artist. But then we return to reality, feeling tired and disheartened. Reality remains as it is. It feels like life favors others while neglecting us. In Thai Can Dam it says, "If things don't go your way, think of those worse off than you, and your complaints will disappear. If laziness arises, think of those better off than you, and you will feel motivated." Everyone has their own way of living. No one can live exactly like someone else. Everyone has their own strengths. Life doesn't need comparisons. Living fully is more important than anything else. Don't compare yourself to others. You might not be able to endure the struggles behind their lives. Life is like a painting, where each person is an irreplaceable piece. Chu Duk Dung has a cartoon illustrating this philosophy vividly. A girl feeling her life is too miserable decides to jump from a building. As she falls, she sees a couple on the 9th floor famous for their affection, arguing. On the 8th floor, a man who always appears strong is secretly crying. A vibrant girl on the 7th floor is taking antidepressants. Before jumping, she thought she was the unluckiest person, but as she falls, she realizes everyone has their own struggles. The happiness others show isn't their whole life. In the sky, there are white clouds, golden sunshine, birds on branches, and twinkling stars. On Earth, there are green mountains, clear waters, and blooming flowers. Under the vast ocean, there are colorful creatures and bustling ships. Birds are happy flying in the sky, fish swimming in the cool water, and animals running freely in the wilderness. Humans, too, are diverse, with different skin colors, eye colors, customs, and beliefs. If any part were missing, life would be dull. If life had only one color, would you see the beautiful rainbow after the rain? If everywhere were filled with beautiful roses, life would be monotonous. The path to success comes in many lengths and directions, but it's your own experiences that matter. Life is diverse. It's no coincidence that people are born with different appearances, personalities, and fates. Happiness doesn't have a universal formula. What's important is being yourself and being happy with your unique identity. We will understand that when born, we have nothing, and when we close our eyes for the last time, we still have nothing. Beauty, love, money, fame, and glory will all vanish like smoke. No one can escape the natural cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. So, in this life, since we are fortunate to be here, let's live sincerely with ourselves. Why force ourselves to follow others' standards of happiness? To do so, find a genuine faith. This faith will elevate your soul, making you understand that you are unique, and so is everyone else. Yet, we are pieces of each other, creating a complete picture of humanity. This way, we can stop comparing ourselves to others and preserve the pure, unique essence that creation has bestowed upon each of us.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
13. Turning adversity into advantage. Once upon a time, in a small American town, there were two brothers who faced immense hardships early in life. Their mother passed away from a severe illness when they were still very young. Stricken with grief, their father fell into gambling and drinking. Their family's assets were squandered, and eventually their father turned to theft when there was nothing left. The two brothers, left in dire poverty, resorted to scavenging for survival. At the end of each day, the older brother spent whatever little money he earned on a full meal. In contrast, the younger brother lived frugally, saving every penny he could. Over time, the younger brother accumulated enough savings to pay for night classes. As they grew up, the older brother became a vagrant, learning to drink, smoke, and fight. He became a gang leader, involved in petty crimes and theft. Meanwhile, the younger brother focused on his studies. During the day, he worked as a waiter to pay for his tuition, and at night, he attended classes. He had a passion for literature and studied writing. 10 years passed, and their lives took drastically different paths. By the time they were nearly 30, the older brother had ended up in prison for manslaughter after a brawl, while the younger brother had become a renowned author with celebrated works. During Christmas in 2010, a journalist heard about the brothers' story and decided to interview them. First, the journalist visited the older brother in jail. "Given your father's influence, do you think his actions led to your current situation?" asked the journalist. The older brother replied firmly, "Absolutely. My father's bad behavior was a heavy burden on me, and that's why I ended up this way." Next, the journalist interviewed the younger brother, who, despite being busy preparing for his new book release, took time to meet. "Your brother said your father's influence led him down his path. Did your father's actions affect you as well?" asked the journalist. The younger brother responded, "To me, my father's life was a heavy burden too. But while my brother carried that burden on his back, making each step painful, I placed it under my feet and used it as a stepping stone to move forward. When I was young, there were two families in my hometown with similar circumstances. Two women who were close friends married into well-off families, each with a handsome, charming husband. Their happiness was short-lived as both husbands eventually abandoned their families. Despite their shared misfortune, each woman chose a different path. One, still young and beautiful at 26, decided not to suffer. She left her children behind to find a new life, eventually marrying a wealthy man as his second wife. While her life improved materially, her children were left to fend for themselves, growing up without their mother's care or father's guidance. They led scattered lives with the family broken and separated. The other woman, despite her husband's betrayal, chose to stay and care for her children. She worked tirelessly, doing various jobs to support her family. Her children grew up in a loving environment, helping each other and their mother. Despite the hardship, their home was filled with love and unity. Thanks to their mother's dedication, the children grew up responsible and hard-working, eventually changing the family's fate. From being looked down upon, they became a respected, prosperous family, admired by others. Same situation, different outcomes. One woman gained wealth but lost her family, living a scattered life. The other sacrificed her youth for her children, living a hard but fulfilling life. As someone once said, a part of effort leads to a part of success. 10 years of hard work can bring a lifetime of blessings. There's a saying, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. Life is full of challenges, and success comes from turning adversity into advantage, transforming weaknesses into strengths. 14. Living peacefully and with humility. The wisdom of the wise. A person who understands the way knows when to advance and when to retreat, without the need for competition or concern for personal gain or loss. They observe flowers blooming and wilting in the garden, watch clouds gathering and dispersing in the sky, and remain unaffected by the changes. This is the realm of the wise. Ancient wisdom holds that everyone has a destiny, and that one's fortune and misfortune throughout life are predetermined. Wealth and prosperity depend on the virtue accumulated in past lives. If one harms others out of jealousy and dissatisfaction, it will not change their fate, but rather create more negative karma for themselves. In the book Yu Song Xiao Ji, there's a couplet that reads, "Unmoved by praise or blame, watching flowers bloom and wither in the courtyard, indifferent to coming and going, observing clouds gather and scatter in the sky." This couplet, though brief, encapsulates the author's philosophy of life and attitude towards all things. Whether gaining or losing, honored or disgraced, the wise remain undisturbed, unconcerned with their status. Why then should one fight and harm others? Only by maintaining a calm and pure mind can one achieve peace and contentment. During the Song dynasty, there was a poet and prime minister named Xiang Minzhong. He remained unaffected by wealth and fame. When Emperor Zhenzong appointed him to a high office, Li Zongzhe, an academician at the Hanlin Academy, was instructed to deliver the news. The emperor remarked, "Since I ascended the throne, I have never appointed a vice minister. Today's appointment of Minzhong is significant. He must be very pleased." Li Zongzhe replied, "This morning, I entered the palace early and have not yet heard the announcement. I do not know how Minzhong feels." The emperor continued, "Minzhong's home must be filled with guests congratulating him. Go visit him and report back to me tomorrow, but do not mention that it was my idea." Being a close friend, Li Zongzhe went directly to Xiang Minzhong's residence to congratulate him. Minzhong responded indifferently. Li Zongzhe further expressed the rarity and honor of the appointment, yet Minzhong remained nonchalant. After leaving, Li Zongji inquired if there were any celebrations or feasts at Minhong's home, but the kitchen staff reported it was quiet as usual. The next day, Li Zongji reported back to the emperor, who laughed and said, "Minhong truly does not care about gain or loss. His mind is free from thoughts of rank. It is clear that he is unbound by desires for status or wealth." In the Northern Song dynasty, Fan Zhongyan wrote in the Yueyang Tower, "Do not feel pleased by external gains, nor be distressed by personal misfortunes. In a high position, worry for the people. In a distant place, worry for the ruler. Whether advancing or retreating, one always has worries. When then can one find joy? Only by worrying before all others and enjoying after all others." The wise keep an open heart, and thus their blessings are abundant. If people understood each other better, there would be fewer misunderstandings. If hearts could be more forgiving, there would be less conflict. Do not judge others or events solely by your own perspective. Do not expect everyone to share your views or fully understand you. Everyone has their own character and viewpoint. Often, we value ourselves too highly, seeking to gain and avoid loss, and crave others' understanding. In reality, valuing others more and ourselves less leads to a happier heart. The more selfish one is, the less joy one experiences. Yielding is not a sign of weakness but of respect and wisdom. Taking a step back can reveal a vast sky and open sea, showcasing a high level of character and intellect. Those who can yield are precious. They know when to let go of their opinions and interests, paving the way for others. Letting go is not losing, but winning people's hearts. When you live with more tranquility and warmth, your life will be filled with sunshine. 15. The true value of life. Life is busy, with each person gradually getting caught up in the hustle and bustle of making a living. We become entangled in the web of material needs, fame, and relationships, driven by thoughts of gain and loss, happiness and sorrow. Over time, our souls become empty without us realizing it. What is the ultimate purpose of a lifetime of busyness? Life is full of suffering, a concept that cannot be fully expressed in words. Long ago, Buddha Shakyamuni was born a prince, surrounded by luxury and raised in wealth and splendor. He had the promise of a powerful future. However, for someone enlightened, life seemed like a fleeting dream. Wealth and power are ultimately as ephemeral as clouds passing by. In the few decades from birth, marked by the first cries, through the years of experiencing honor and disgrace, joy and pain, to aging and death, all that remains is a handful of ashes. Thus, Buddha Shakyamuni sought a path to liberation from the cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death, aiming for enlightenment. Han Zhongli, one of the top 3 immortals in the 8 immortals, saw Lu Dongbin's desire to cultivate the Tao. He invited Lu to the mountains to practice with him, but Lu refused. Later, at an inn, Zhongli gave Lu a pillow to sleep on while he cooked a pot of yellow millet. As Zhongli cooked, Lu fell asleep and had a dream. In the dream, 40 years passed and he experienced all the glories of life. He excelled in examinations, became a high-ranking official, and even the prime minister. He married, had children and servants, but a great misfortune struck. Betrayed and losing everything, including his family and wealth, he wandered in poverty and loneliness, regretting his life. Lu woke up and the millet was still not cooked. Zhongli smiled and sang, "The pot of millet isn't done, but the dream has ended." Finally, Lu decided to follow Zhongli, practicing the Tao and achieving immortality, becoming one of the legendary 8 immortals. What is the true purpose of human life? Everyone searches for their answer, each with different perspectives. In life, everything needs sunlight, just as it needs air and water. Similarly, we need moral standards to distinguish right from wrong. Humans are the essence of all creatures, so we must have standards to live by, clearly differentiating right from wrong. As the saying goes, heaven has a purpose for me, which means that everyone has a role to play. Sometimes life feels dull and meaningless, but from another perspective, we play an essential role in the lives of those around us. Therefore, when one understands the laws of human existence, sees through gain and loss, and lives with a pure and simple heart, accepting everything naturally, they will have a peaceful and free life. 16. Forgiveness, an invaluable gift for the soul. There's a saying, no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes at some point. If you can't be forgiving towards others, don't expect forgiveness from them in return. Who can confidently say they've never made a mistake or stumbled in life? When you forgive your enemies, you're also freeing yourself from the invisible chains that bind your heart. If these chains aren't broken, they'll tighten over time, creating resentment and spiritual anguish, which can lead to various ailments. Thus, forgiving others is, in essence, saving yourself. An old story tells of King Zhuang of Chu, who once hosted a banquet for his ministers. During the feast, a strong wind blew out all the candles. In the darkness, one of the officials took advantage and harassed the king's maid. The maid tore off the man's hat ribbon and reported the incident to the king, asking to relight the candles to identify and punish the offender. But King Zhuang dismissed her request and declared, "Anyone who drinks with me today and doesn't tear their hat ribbon isn't truly enjoying themselves." Thus, all the ministers tore off their ribbons, and the culprit remained unknown. 2 years later, the state of Chu engaged in a fierce battle with the state of Jin. In 5 intense battles, one Chu general bravely led the charge, fighting with no regard for his life. His valor brought victory to Chu. King Zhuang, curious about the general's motivation, summoned him and asked. The general replied, "I am deeply grateful for your Majesty's kindness in forgiving my offense during that banquet. I vowed to repay this mercy with my life on the battlefield. Today, I finally had the chance." The general was none other than Jiang Hong, the man who had harassed the maid. King Zhuang's magnanimity and lack of pettiness proved crucial. Had he not forgiven Jiang Hong's misconduct, who would have led the charge with such determination in battle? Forgiveness is not about bestowing kindness upon others. It's a gift for our own souls. Forgiving is not difficult. The challenge lies in whether one can let go of hatred and resentment. Hatred is like a demon. If you keep it in your heart, you're only feeding it, and one day it might consume you. This danger is real, so remember, forgiveness is the cool stream that extinguishes the flames of hatred burning in our hearts. Without an open heart, success in life is unlikely. The root of forgiveness is compassion and kindness. To forgive others more easily, cultivate a benevolent and kind heart. True virtue lies in having a compassionate heart, for the essence of the heart is worth more than talent alone. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 17. The Journey of Liberation and Reflections on Human Life. Life, whether long or short, is but a century. Live joyfully without clinging to desires. Don't burden yourself because, in death, nothing can be taken with us. Some believe death is the end. Others see it as the beginning of a new existence. To the people of Tibet, death is simply the soul departing the body, leaving behind an empty, soulless shell. Meanwhile, vultures are revered as sacred creatures, honored as holy eagles. Instead of burying the dead, they offer the bodies to the vultures on the mountains. This practice is called sky burial or bird burial. While some see sky burial as gruesome, it holds deep meanings that make one ponder the essence of human existence. Originally, my journey didn't include witnessing a sky burial, but a monk suggested it, saying that seeing one could help let go of worldly attachments. Indeed, after watching, you realize how laughable and pitiable your attachments are. Watching the sky burial for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I simply saw through the brevity of human life. That day, seeing the burial masters wield their mallets, my mind went blank. As I witnessed the bodies laid bare to the elements, devoured by hungry vultures, tears flowed uncontrollably. This is life. Regardless of wealth or status, everyone meets the same fate. In death, all distinctions vanish. The vultures ascend, the wind blows, and the flesh returns to the void. Not everyone can endure the sight of bodies being consumed by vultures. The cherished body, the beautiful face, everything fought for, ends in nothing. Like a child who has never seen a tiger, thinking it as cute as a kitten, all illusions vanish upon seeing the tiger's reality. Watching a sky burial reveals that all humans, regardless of wealth, gender, or age, meet the same end. Love and beauty fade away in the face of this reality, showing the transient nature of life. All ambitions and desires scatter like the wind. Witnessing the dissolution of a life, I felt no fear or disgust. Before me were only naked bodies, stripped of all illusions. This is the end of life. Returning to the Buddhist Institute after the sky burial, I saw everyone equally, regardless of gender or appearance. After seeing a sky burial, blessed by the clear sky, these insights became even clearer. Following this experience, my relationship with my husband transformed. Despite 10 years of marriage, I never fulfilled my role as a wife, always clashing with him. He is calm and caring, yet I never appreciated it, always selfishly demanding without considering his feelings. Once, in a bad mood, I left home for a while, not even apologizing afterward. My former self would have insisted on divorce to end it all. In Tibet, I tried calling my husband to apologize, but choked up before speaking. He often said that while I studied Buddhism, he embodied its principles more. Now I realize he was right. True Buddhist practice isn't about retreating to the mountains or chanting constantly. It's about maintaining a pure state of mind and right view in every action and word. In all circumstances, if you can keep a compassionate, serene heart, unaffected by external events, that is true practice. As a senior monk once advised me, enjoy your old karma without creating new karma. This is what we must do, and it all lies in changing our perspective. Returning home, I found the courage to face my husband and apologize. After years of studying Buddhism, my home became a true sanctuary of practice. That night, my husband remarked that for the first time, he saw a genuine change in my character, perhaps because I finally examined myself seriously. As a master once said, if you can't handle worldly matters well, how can you speak of liberation? A senior monk once advised me that as a Buddhist, even if your spouse cheats, don't think of divorce. Just let the relationship end naturally. Clinging to action might create new karma. The ultimate advice remains: enjoy old karma, avoid new karma. All is liberation in this life. This doesn't mean having two faces, but understanding karma and reincarnation. I neither mourn nor hate you, nor blame you. We come into the world alone and leave alone. The passage of life and death is solitary. We are not truly husbands or wives, not truly family or friends. The world is not about right or wrong, only cause and effect. Our errors come from an impure heart and lack of wisdom, clouded by delusions. Some say, those blessed with a sky burial can connect with the heavens. I believe the deceased sheds the mortal body through sky burial, while the living must let go of worldly attachments to truly connect with the heavens. 18. Don't argue with small-minded people. An ancient proverb says, "Still waters run deep," meaning that truly wise and noble people speak with a calm and measured tone. It takes only 2 years to learn to speak, but a lifetime to learn the art of silence. Confucius had a student who loved to debate. One day, this student visited Confucius and encountered a man standing at the gate. The man stopped the student and said, "I've heard your teacher is the sage Confucius, so your knowledge must be profound. Let me ask you, how many seasons are there in a year? If you answer correctly, I'll bow to you. If you're wrong, you must bow to me." The student thought for a moment and replied, "Spring, summer, fall, and winter, 4 seasons." The man argued back, "Wrong, there are 3 seasons." The student, puzzled, insisted, "Clearly there are 4 seasons in a year. How can you say there are only 3? Just as the debate heated up, Confucius arrived. The man asked, "Sage, please settle this. How many seasons are there in a year?" Confucius looked the man over and said, 3 seasons. The man, triumphant, turned to the student. "You heard the sage. Now bow to me." Laughing, he walked away. The student, bewildered, asked Confucius, "Teacher, there are clearly 4 seasons in a year. Why did you say there are 3? Confucius explained, "Did you not notice? That man is a transformed grasshopper. A grasshopper lives for only 3 seasons, spring, summer, and fall. It doesn't know winter. Arguing with him would be futile." The student then understood the profound wisdom of his teacher. Debating with someone who does not share your perspective is a waste of time. Laozi said, "The wise do not argue, and those who argue are not wise." This means that a truly virtuous person does not engage in pointless debates. Personal growth is demonstrated through actions, not words. Truth stands on its own and does not need to be argued over. Small-minded people believe that constant debating proves their correctness. However, truth is a universal principle. The task of a wise person is to cultivate themselves to reach the realm of truth, achieving complete enlightenment. Small-minded people stubbornly insist on arguing, revealing their own foolishness. In the Tao Te Ching, Laozi wrote, "The sage acts, but does not contend." One of the highest principles of self-cultivation in Buddhism is patience. True patience and the ability to avoid pointless arguments reflect the highest level of personal growth. In the Northern Song dynasty, there was a man named Fu Bi. One day, while walking down a street in Luoyang, a person started cursing at him. A bystander whispered to Fu Bi, "Young man, someone is cursing at you." Fu Bi replied, "It seems like he's talking about someone else." The bystander insisted, "He's even calling you by name." Fu Bi thought for a moment and said, "He must be talking about someone who has the same name as me." Eventually, the person cursing felt ashamed upon hearing Fu Bi's response and apologized to him. Fu Bi's behavior exemplifies how a wise person does not argue with small-minded individuals. It's not about being weak, but about not getting entangled in trivial matters. Stepping back can open up a vast world. Ancient wisdom suggests that appearing foolish is the strategy of the truly wise. Life is short and valuable, with many important things to accomplish. Why waste time on petty disputes? By understanding this principle, you will reach a different level of great wisdom. In the Analects, Confucius said, "The noble-minded are diligent in deeds and cautious in speech." He also stated, "The noble-minded are slow in speech but quick in action." Clearly, the ancients valued action over words. They believed in proving one's worth through deeds rather than clever arguments, speaking humbly, or remaining silent. In contrast, small-minded people talk a lot but do nothing. There's a saying, "Eat like a dragon, speak like a dragon," implying that those who endure and do not argue are busy working. Small-minded people, doing little, have plenty of time to talk, but they lack real ability. Wise people cherish their limited time, focusing entirely on their work, not wasting it on pointless arguments. They have long abandoned the desire to win arguments. Small-minded people may be eloquent, but they leave the real work to others. Thus, arguing with small-minded people is lowering oneself to their level and wasting precious time. Good people do not argue, and those who argue are not good. Those who know do not speak much, and those who speak much do not know. This means that a truly wise person does not necessarily need to be highly educated, and a highly educated person is not necessarily wise. What determines a person's wisdom is not the amount of knowledge accumulated, but their mindset and the level of their thoughts. Intelligent people may use clever words to argue, but truly wise people understand that speaking is a skill, and silence is a form of wisdom. So, isn't it true that we should not argue with small-minded people? 19. Finding light in desperation. A 50-year-old man came to me for advice. He was extremely worn out, completely desperate, and utterly dejected. He kept repeating, "It's all over, it's all over," as he staggered like a man who had lost his soul. "Everything?" I asked. "Everything," he confirmed, emphasizing that his life had reached an incredibly dark and bleak state. "I have nothing left. Everything is gone. There's no hope. I'm too old to start over. I've lost all faith." I listened sympathetically to his heart-wrenching words. Despair had filled his heart, and despondency had eroded his will. He had no physical illness. His ailment was mental. His frail appearance and shrunken limbs made him look like a 92-year-old man counting his final days in a nursing home. I tried to remain calm and said, "Okay, let's take a piece of paper and list what you still have." "There's no need, doctor," he sighed heavily. "I have nothing left. Didn't I make that clear?" "I understand, but let's review one last time," I said. "Is your wife still living with you?" "What? Of course, she's very good to me. We've been married for 30 years. No matter how bad things get, she would never leave me." "Good. Let me write this down. Your wife is still with you, and no matter what happens, she won't abandon you. What about your children? Do you have any?" "Yes," he replied. "I have 3 children, and they're all very talented. They tell me, 'Dad, we love you, and will always support you.' I find that very touching. So, here's the second point. Your 3 children love you and always support you. Do you have friends?" I asked. "I have a few very good friends who have always been willing to help me, but now no one can do anything anymore. They can't help me." "So, you have close friends who are willing to help you and respect you. But I'm curious, how do you feel about your own character? Have you ever done anything wrong?" "I feel I've lived a life without shame. I've always tried to do the right thing, never hurt anyone." "Very good. Let's write down another line. Good morals. How's your health been lately?" "I'm completely fine. Rarely get sick. I consider myself quite healthy, but recently I've been feeling constantly depressed and miserable, like my life ended long ago." "What about America? Do you feel you still have opportunities in this country?" "This is the only country I want to live in until my last day," he replied. I then asked him, "Do you believe that God will help you?" He seemed puzzled and furrowed his brow slightly before saying, "I still believe in God until my last breath. When that time comes, I hope God will forgive my sins and erase all my suffering." "Okay, now let's look at this paper and see what you still have," I said. 1. A good wife who has been married to you for over 30 years and will never leave you. 2. 3 children who love you and fully support you. 3. Close friends who respect you and are willing to help you. 4. Good morals, a clear conscience. 5. Good health. 6. Living in America, the best place to live in the world. 7. Faith in God. I handed him the paper and said, "I think you still have a lot, but at first you told me you had nothing." The man shyly took the paper from my hand, staring at it for several minutes as if trying to read each line carefully. Suddenly he looked up, tears streaming down his face. I saw his lips trembling, struggling to remain composed before he began sobbing uncontrollably, covering his face with his hands. I sat quietly beside him, watching him cry like a remorseful child. He lifted his head and said, "I thought I had nothing left. I was so terrible, so stupid. Today I had planned to kill myself. After meeting you, I had prepared a dose of sleeping pills. But I understand now. I understand. God never abandoned me." Without waiting for my response, he quietly stood up, shook my hand firmly, slammed the door, and walked out. It suddenly started to rain, but he walked bareheaded down the street. His demeanor was entirely different from when he came to see me. Perhaps the only thing he wanted to do now was to return home and embrace his wife and 3 children, telling them how much he loved them. So, in our lives, there are times when things don't go as planned. We always hope for a peaceful and fulfilling life, but waves of hardship and stormy nights can sweep us away, withering our hearts and leaving us seemingly without hope. Have you ever tried to do what this doctor did? Even in the deepest despair, take a moment to list what you still have. In your darkest times, at least you still have family, friends, health, morals, and faith in God to shelter you. If you are a good person and always keep goodness in your heart, life will never completely shut its doors on you. Things will eventually work out. If it hasn't yet, it's not the end. So always live joyfully, trust in life, love it, and cherish yourself. Your parents gave you life, bringing you into this world with great effort. On a deeper level, your life may have been protected and supported by higher beings. You must have heard about how God created humans from clay. From clay, the higher powers made you with such effort. If you don't cherish your life, you're being unfair to yourself, your parents, and the divine who nurtured your life and soul. And always remember, in the 100-year illusion of life, I find myself in a lost place. Life is like a fleeting dream. Hold on to your goodness.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
20. What is the most important thing in life? At times, we find ourselves drowning in despair, frustration, and sadness about our present selves. But with a blink of an eye, we admire our past selves. A 70-year-old looks at a 60-year-old with admiration, wishing for the health they had. Health is the most important thing. A 60-year-old admires a 50-year-old, blessed with parents to care for and children to be taken care of. Family is the most important thing. A 50-year-old looks at a 40-year-old with admiration, enjoying the prime of their career with endless prospects. Career is the most important thing. A 40-year-old admires a 30-year-old whose youth has just passed. Even if they don't have much now, with hard work they can achieve anything. Ambition is the most important thing. A 30-year-old looks at a 20-year-old with admiration, filled with youthful energy and vitality. They can love and dream freely. Love is the most important thing. So what is the most important thing in life? Throughout our lives, we experience conflicting emotions. In a blink of an eye, our life passes by. At times, we are overwhelmed with despair, frustration, and sadness about our present selves. But with a blink of an eye, we admire our past selves. Perhaps at that moment, we realize the regret for what we have wasted. Health, family, career, or love. Each of us spends our lives searching for a path called happiness. However, happiness is not about what we possess, but about being content with what we have. As we age, with graying hair, looking back on our lives, we realize that youth, love, career, health, and family were all things we once had. That is happiness. Yet, many of us are still searching for happiness. Someone who doesn't appreciate the present will never be happy, no matter how much wealth they have. There is a saying, contentment brings happiness. Only when we know contentment can we understand true happiness. Living a life without regrets means prioritizing what is truly important. If we believe love is the most important, we might forget about dreams and ambitions. If we believe career is the most important, we might neglect family and health. But one day, looking back, we may regret the things we once overlooked. Human strength has limits. No matter how hard we strive, there are many things we can't achieve. Even if we achieve them, they may not bring long-lasting satisfaction. Thus, the important thing is not what we have, but whether what we have is truly important to us. In my hometown, there are two elderly men. Mr. Tai is wealthy, the richest in the village. His home has everything he desires with more money than he can spend. Mr. Min, on the other hand, has lived a simple life, his family just getting by with their daily needs. Yet Mr. Tai always admires Mr. Min. Mr. Min sleeps soundly through the night, waking refreshed in the morning. Mr. Tai, however, cannot do the same. Mr. Min's children, though not highly successful, are filial and caring. Mr. Tai's two children, on the other hand, are constantly scheming against each other, eyeing their father's wealth. Mr. Min's meals, whether with vegetables or fish, are enjoyed heartily. Mr. Tai, despite having lavish feasts, finds nothing to his taste, eating irregularly. Mr. Min, despite his hardships, lives happily and contentedly. Mr. Tai, on the other hand, is troubled by family conflicts, fearing his wealth will be squandered by his heirs. Mr. Min lived a long life, passing away peacefully. Mr. Tai, however, is constantly in poor health, relying on medication. Sometimes I wonder if they were to switch places, would Mr. Tai feel happier? It's hard to say. The main reason is that happiness does not come from what we possess, but from letting go of what we desire. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our video. May you overcome all the storms in life to achieve great success. Goodbye, and see you in our next video. 21. Never give up. More than 10 years ago, the American film superstar Sylvester Stallone was incredibly poor. He had only $100 to his name, not even enough to rent a room, so he had to sleep in his car. During that time, he was determined to become an actor. With unwavering confidence, he went to a film company in New York to apply for a role. Back then, there were 500 film companies in New York, but they all rejected him due to his ordinary appearance and slurred speech. Undeterred, he wrote the screenplay for Rocky and tried to sell it everywhere. People mocked and laughed at him once again. He faced 1,855 rejections. Finally, one day, he met a film company owner willing to produce the boxing film series Rocky that he had written. However, the owner insisted that Stallone could not star in the movie. Stallone's persistence paid off when the company eventually agreed to let him act in the film. Can you face 1,855 rejections and still not give up like Stallone? Whether you haven't succeeded yet or have experienced failure, when you feel like giving up, ask yourself if you've been rejected 1,855 times. 22. Unwavering faith. Robert and his wife Mary finally reached the mountain summit. Standing atop the peak and gazing into the distance, the distant white buildings of the city looked like a painting under the sunlight. Looking up at the blue sky with white clouds and feeling the gentle breeze, they felt as joyful as children, waving their arms and forgetting everything. For people who work tirelessly every day, this was a rare chance to rest. At this moment, the real tragedy began. Robert missed his step, and his tall frame stumbled towards the precipice, surrounded by steep cliffs with no place to hold on. In an instant, Mary realized what was happening. Instinctively, she bit down on her husband's jacket. She had been crouching to take pictures of the distant landscape. The momentum also pulled her towards the edge, but in a split second she managed to grab hold of a tree trunk. Robert hung in the air while Mary clenched her teeth tightly. Can you believe it? Those small white teeth managed to bear the weight of a grown man. Mary couldn't open her mouth to call for help. An hour later, a passing hiker fortunately rescued them. By that time, Mary's beautiful teeth and lips were stained with blood. When someone asked Mary how she managed to hold on for so long, she replied, "At that moment, I had only one thought in my mind. If I let go, Robert would surely die." A few days later, their story had spread around the world. 23. Persistence. Kerr once worked for a publishing company. When he first joined, he was a confident advertising sales agent. He was so confident in his abilities that he proposed to his manager that he would forego a salary and only earn commissions based on ad sales. The manager agreed to his proposal. Kerr then made a list and prepared to approach several potential clients, ones that the other salespeople believed were impossible to work with. Before visiting these clients, Kerr would lock himself in a room, stand in front of a mirror, read the client list 10 times and tell himself, "This month you will buy ad space from us." Armed with tenfold confidence, he visited the clients and closed deals with 3 out of the 20 supposedly impossible clients. In the following days, he closed 2 more deals. By the end of the month, only 1 out of the 20 clients had not bought ads from him. In the second month, Kerr didn't seek new clients. Instead, he focused on persuading the last client on his list. Every morning, as soon as the store opened, he would go in and try to convince them to buy ad space, only to be rejected each time. Each no was ignored, and he would return the next day. On the 30th day, the store owner said to Kerr, "You've wasted a month trying to convince me to buy your ad space, but what I want to know now is, why are you so persistent?" Kerr replied, "I haven't wasted my time. I'm here to learn and you are my teacher. You've taught me the value of perseverance in the face of adversity." The business owner nodded and said, "I also admit I'm learning too, and you are my teacher. You've shown me how to persist in teaching this lesson. To me, that's more valuable than money. To show my gratitude, I will buy your ad space as a tuition fee." In reality, failure is not important. What matters is our persistent attitude when facing difficulties, maintaining an indomitable spirit, and never bowing to challenges. 24. The Bluebird. Once upon a time, there was a cheerful and carefree boy who had a charming little friend, a bluebird. They were very close, and the bird would often chirp and fly alongside him wherever he went. One day, a beautiful girl transferred into his class. The boy secretly admired her but was very shy. It wasn't until the school organized a festival that he mustered up the courage to approach her and invite her to the event. The girl, who was the school's sweetheart, wasn't arrogant but didn't want to go with just any boy for fear of being teased by her friends. So she told him that if he could bring her a red rose, she would accept his invitation. The boy was disheartened because he knew there were no red roses anywhere in their area, only white ones. On his way home, he kept muttering to himself, wondering why she didn't ask for a white rose, which would have been so much easier for him to find. Meanwhile, his little friend, the bluebird, understood what the boy needed and stayed awake all night thinking of a way to help him. At dawn, the bird finally had an idea. It flew to a large white rose near some thorny bushes and with all its might threw itself into the thorns. The bird's blood stained the white petals, turning the flower into a deep red rose. When the boy left his house, he found a beautiful red rose right outside his door. He couldn't believe his eyes. Overjoyed, he picked up the rose, not noticing the bluebird lying in a pool of blood nearby. The boy carried the rose to school, but on his way, he met his friends playing an exciting game of soccer. At first, he insisted he had something important to do, but his friends kept urging him to join them. He looked at his friends, then at the rose, and thought, "The girl probably doesn't want to go with me anyway. That's why she asked for a red rose. Even if I bring it to her, she might not say yes." So he tossed the rose aside and ran to join the soccer game. Perhaps you find this story familiar, and so did I. The warm blood staining the white petals red, coloring the snow. These are common motifs in fairy tales. However, this story has a different ending with its own hidden meaning. The boy represents each of us. The bluebird symbolizes all the good things: family, close friends, opportunities. The girl stands for a goal we aim to achieve. The red rose represents the challenges we need to overcome. The soccer game with friends signifies the small pleasures and immediate benefits that sometimes distract us from our true goals. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 25. The Horse Rider. It was a freezing night in Northern Virginia many years ago. The frost was bitterly cold, but an old man stood by the roadside waiting for a ride. How long he had been there or how much longer he would have to wait was unknown, but he stood there shivering, patiently waiting. Many horse riders passed by, but the old man remained silent, not waving them down. He didn't do anything to attract attention. One by one, the riders passed him by, but the old man stood still like a statue. As the night grew later, it got colder and fewer people passed by. Suddenly, the old man stood up as he heard the sound of approaching hooves. "Young man, could you give me a lift? The snow is too deep for me to walk any further," he called out. The rider pulled his horse to a stop, got down, and helped the old man onto the horse. He didn't just give him a ride for a short distance, but took him all the way home. Before the old man went inside, the rider asked curiously, "Sir, I saw you standing there for a long time. Why didn't you ask for a ride earlier? There were many people passing by during the day. Why did you wait until it was dark and cold?" The old man looked into the rider's eyes and replied, "Son, I've lived in this area for a long time. I can look into a person's eyes and see what kind of person they are. When the earlier riders passed by, they glanced at me and then looked away quickly. Their eyes showed no concern or kindness. So I knew that even if I waved them down, they wouldn't have stopped. But when you approached, you looked at me from afar and didn't take your eyes off me. In your eyes, I saw compassion and concern. At that moment, I knew you would help me." Those words touched the rider deeply. "Thank you for saying that. I hope I'll never be too busy to notice others when they need help," he said. And with that, Thomas Jefferson turned his horse back towards the White House. Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States and the author of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. 26. Look up. Sometimes certain people come into your life and instantly you realize how important their presence is. They teach you valuable lessons, help you see your own worth, or become the person you always dreamed of being. You may not know where these people come from. Maybe a roommate, a neighbor, a professor, a long-lost friend, or even a complete stranger. But when you encounter them, remember that their presence can profoundly impact your life. At first, situations may seem terrible. painful, and unfair. But when you reflect on your life, you'll understand that without these moments, you wouldn't be able to appreciate your talents, strengths, willpower, and compassion. Everything happens for a reason. There are no coincidences or luck, illness, heartbreak, stolen moments of happiness, or other unfortunate events are all valuable lessons. Without them, life would be a straight, dull path with no destination and no dreams. While such a path might seem safe and comfortable, it would be boring and meaningless. The people you meet will influence your life. Success or failure, even the worst experiences, are the most valuable lessons that help you realize your own worth. If someone hurts you, betrays you, or takes advantage of your kindness, forgive them because they teach you the importance of being genuine and help you open your heart to others. If someone loves you sincerely, love them unconditionally, not just because they love you, but because they teach you how to love. Cherish every moment and remember the ones you'll never experience again. Engage with people you haven't spoken to and listen to them. Let your heart learn to love others. The sky is vast, so look up and be confident in yourself. Listen to your heart. You are an amazing individual. Be confident and value yourself because if you don't, who will? Own your life and never regret the way you live it. If you love someone, let them know, even if you might be rejected. It might make a broken heart beat again. 27. The Crystal Rose. Yesterday was Tom's 10th birthday and his dad sent him a special gift. It was a large package filled with chocolates and a beautiful crystal rose. For days, Tom had been going to the store with his friend Jack after school just to admire the rose through the display case. It was far too expensive for Tom, but now his dream of holding it in his hands had come true. Tom was overjoyed and felt he had to do something. Of course, I'll show it to Jack. He'll be thrilled, Tom thought, and he ran to Jack's house with the crystal rose and some chocolates in hand. Jack's house was grand with a garden and a mansion that looked like a prince's castle. Tom excitedly told Jack about his gift. Jack couldn't hide his excitement and asked if he could hold it. Tom, eager to share with his best friend, handed Jack the beautiful rose and some of his birthday chocolates. The crystal rose glowed beautifully, its colors captivating the two boys. They spent a wonderful time playing in Jack's garden, with Tom's birthday joy overflowing. Tom hadn't felt this happy since his beloved father had moved away for work. Then, something terrible happened. The crystal rose shattered on the floor. It must have rolled off the table. Tom burst into tears, crying like a child who had been unfairly punished. All his joy and hope were shattered along with the rose. His tear-filled eyes looked straight at Jack, who stood there, embarrassed. You broke it, didn't you, Jack? You're awful, Tom accused. I didn't, Jack stammered, trying to explain, but Tom ran out of Jack's house, completely disappointed. One day passed, then 2, then 3, and Tom didn't go to school. He was very ill and had to be rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, Jack's family moved to another city, and Jack transferred to a new school. A few days later, Tom recovered and could leave the hospital and return to school. A tightly wrapped gift was given to Tom by one of his classmates, sent by Jack. Tom held the gift with curiosity and opened it. Inside was a chocolate bar and a crystal rose with a letter. Tom, I'm so sorry for what happened. My family is moving and I wanted to give you the gift you loved most for your birthday, but I ended up ruining your day. So, I'm sending you a new gift. I hope you get well soon and remain my best friend, Jack. What? So? That means the gift wasn't from my dad? So many thoughts rushed through Tom's mind until he finally realized that he had wrongly blamed Jack. Why did I accuse Jack without any reason? Jack was so kind to me, gave me a wonderful birthday, and sent me a gift. My dad couldn't have bought such an expensive gift. He hasn't been home in so long and probably doesn't even remember my birthday. Oh, it was all my fault. I was so foolish to blame Jack. Now, Tom understood what friendship meant. It was as precious and beautiful as a crystal rose, shining in many ways but fragile. If we don't handle it with care, it can break beyond repair. Jack was Tom's best friend, and now he was gone, just like Tom's beloved father. Both had left, never to return. 28. Speak your love. Before it's too late. Eric was the guy every girl in high school dreamed about. Kathleen was one of the most popular girls in school. She was beautiful, fashionable, and extremely attractive. Carol, on the other hand, was a simple girl with nothing particularly outstanding. She was just one of the many ordinary girls you see in every high school. Both Kathleen and Carol were deeply in love with Eric. Kathleen didn't have to do anything to get noticed. To Eric, she was already captivating enough. Carol was the opposite. She wasn't ugly. In fact, she was cheerful and cute. But she wasn't a beautiful, alluring cheerleader. All she could offer Eric was her love and care. As everyone expected, Eric chose Kathleen. Eric said Carol was just an ordinary and unattractive girl. This deeply hurt Carol. That's life. But Carol refused to give up. She wanted to prove to Eric that beauty isn't everything. So, Carol buried herself in her studies. She quickly became one of the top students in school. The boys who previously ignored her now began to pursue her. Yet, her heart couldn't forget Eric. Every day she placed a red rose and a note in Eric's locker. I truly care about you always. Meanwhile, Eric wasn't as happy as he had thought he would be. His girlfriend Kathleen quickly left him for another handsome guy. That's life. Eric started to question himself. Did I choose the wrong person? And he realized how foolish he had been, falling for just outward beauty. He felt regret. Gathering all his courage, Eric approached Carol, knelt before her, and said, "Forgive me, Carol. Will you be my girlfriend?" To everyone's surprise, Carol declined. She gently said to Eric, "You've just gone through a great loss. I don't want you to face that again." Eric didn't understand the meaning behind Carol's words, but he accepted her decision. They became best friends, sharing everything together. Since then, people noticed a change in Eric. He became a better person, all thanks to Carol. She cared for him with a love no other girl had shown him before. Other girls only saw Eric's handsome appearance, but Carol accepted him for who he was, with all the love she had. Every day, Carol still placed a red rose in Eric's locker with the same note, "I truly care about you, always." One day, Carol didn't show up in class. A week passed, and Carol was still absent. At first, Eric thought she was on a vacation with her family. Hadn't she mentioned going to Hawaii? But after another week with no sign of Carol, Eric began to worry. Then he received a call from the city hospital. They told him Carol was critically ill. From the start, Carol didn't want to tell Eric about her cancer. She didn't want him to worry about her. But in her final moments, she longed to see Eric one last time. Eric rushed to the hospital, tears streaming down his face as he saw her lying there weak and exhausted. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you hide this from me?" Carol lovingly looked at Eric, trying to smile softly. "When I told you I didn't want you to face another loss, this is what I meant. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. I just wanted to spend my last days happily with you." Eric sobbed. "You can't leave me. What will I do without you?" "You will live as you are now. Don't forget that I'm always with you. Enjoy life and be truly happy. Oh, one more thing." "What is it?" "I love you." And then Carol was gone. 1 month. Eric had only been with Carol for 1 month, but she had changed his entire life in a way no one could explain. Using her love, Eric stayed, filled with pain and regret. We too sometimes don't realize who truly cares about us until they're gone, until we lose them forever. Then we're left with nothing but regret. Speak your love to the person you love. Don't stay silent because you might lose them before you get the chance to say anything. Love is fighting until your last breath to tell someone how much you love them.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.